I'm 32, male, and I've been working in corporate finance for almost a decade. I'm the type who believes in hard work over shortcuts, and I've prided myself on being the person who delivers results without cutting corners. This story is about how that belief was tested by someone I once trusted, and how I turned the tables when I realized I had been betrayed. I worked at a mid-sized firm with a close-knit team. My boss, Qley, was the kind of guy who always seemed too polished. He was in his early 40s with an uncanny ability to schmooze the right people at the right time. He wasn't necessarily bad at his job, but he wasn't exactly brilliant either. His real talent lay in taking credit for things he didn't do. For years, I had been his right-hand man. I handled the gritty details while he made the presentations. At first, it didn't bother me. I figured that's just how the corporate world works. He gave me vague praise during meetings and occasionally thanked me in passing, so I didn't think much of it. But as time went on, I started noticing something odd. Whenever a big project succeeded, Qley would take center stage, presenting it as if it were his brainchild. My contributions were relegated to the fine print, barely acknowledged. The breaking point came about a year ago when we were tasked with creating a proposal for a high-profile client. This wasn't just any client. It was a potential game-changer for the firm. If we landed them, it could mean promotions, bonuses, and recognition on a whole new level. I threw myself into the work, spending late nights and weekends crafting a detailed financial model, running risk analyses, and preparing the final pitch deck. Qley, meanwhile, contributed little more than buzzwords during our planning meetings. When it came time for the big presentation, I fully expected to be part of the team delivering it. After all, I had done 95% of the work. But Qley pulled me aside 2 days before the pitch and said, "You've done an amazing job here, but I think it's better if I present this solo. The client likes a streamlined approach." I was stunned. "But I've been the one working on this day and night," I protested. He smiled that fake, patronizing smile of his. "I know, and trust me, I'll make sure to give you credit. But this is about securing the client, and I don't want to overwhelm them with too many faces." Overwhelm them? It was obvious he wanted the spotlight for himself. I reluctantly stepped back, telling myself that as long as the firm benefited, it would be worth it. The presentation was a success, and we secured the client. Qley basked in the glory, hailed as the mastermind behind the pitch. I got a curt "good job" in passing and nothing else. It didn't take long for Qley's self-serving behavior to escalate. Over the next few months, he began leaning on me more and more, passing off my ideas and work as his own during executive meetings. Each time, I told myself I'd confront him, but I hesitated. I didn't want to risk my reputation or seem petty. Then came the final straw. One Friday afternoon, the CEO called an all-hands meeting to announce that Qley had been promoted to Vice President of Strategy. I sat in the crowd, seething as he gave a speech thanking the incredible team that supported him. He didn't even look in my direction. But what really enraged me was what happened after the meeting. A colleague, who I'll call Jay, pulled me aside. "Hey," he said, "did you know Qley used your financial model from the big client pitch in his VP application? He's been calling it his signature approach." I felt my stomach drop. Qley hadn't just taken credit for my work. He had leveraged it to secure a promotion I had been eyeing for years. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every interaction I'd had with Qley. Every instance where I had downplayed his behavior or told myself it wasn't worth making a fuss over. But this was too far. He had stolen my work and used it to climb the ladder, leaving me behind. I decided then and there that I wasn't going to let him get away with it. Over the next week, I started gathering evidence. I went through old emails, saved drafts, and even timestamped versions of the financial model I had created. I compiled everything into a detailed timeline that showed exactly who had done what for that client pitch. Then I reached out to Jay and a couple of other colleagues who had witnessed my late nights in the office. They agreed to back me up if it came down to it. My next step was booking a one-on-one meeting with the CEO. I knew I couldn't just walk in and accuse Qley without solid proof, so I approached it carefully. During our meeting, I laid everything out. The timeline, the emails, and even some Slack messages where Qley had asked me for updates on the work he later claimed as his own. I kept my tone professional but firm, emphasizing how this wasn't just about me. It was about the integrity of the company. The CEO listened quietly, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he leaned back and said, "This is serious. I'll need to look into it." It took about 2 weeks for the investigation to unfold. During that time, I kept my head down and continued working as usual. Qley, oblivious to what was happening, strutted around the office like he owned the place. He even started delegating more of his work to me, saying things like, "You're so good at the details. I don't want to step on your toes." I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. Finally, the hammer came down. The CEO called another all-hands meeting, during which he announced that due to discrepancies in recent contributions, Qley would be stepping down as VP effective immediately. The room went silent as the CEO's words sank in. Qley, who had been standing near the front with his usual smug demeanor, looked like he'd just been hit by a truck. He tried to maintain his composure, but I could see his hands trembling as he gripped the edge of the podium. The CEO didn't elaborate further, but everyone knew what discrepancies meant. I kept my expression neutral, though inside I felt a wave of vindication. Justice was being served, and Qley was finally being held accountable for his lies and manipulation. As the meeting ended, Qley avoided eye contact with everyone and quickly disappeared into his office. Word spread fast, and by the end of the day, people were whispering about the sudden fall of the once glorified VP. Meanwhile, I was called back to the CEO's office. "I've reviewed everything you provided," he said, his tone serious but not unkind. "First of all, I want to thank you for bringing this to my attention. What Qley did was unacceptable. You not only upheld your integrity, but you also demonstrated the kind of leadership this company needs." He paused, leaning forward slightly. "I'll be honest with you. I'm looking for someone to step into Qley's role. Given your track record and the evidence you've presented, I think you're the right person for the job." I was stunned. For a moment, I just sat there unsure of how to respond. The job I had been working toward for years was finally within reach, but it wasn't just handed to me. I had earned it. "I'm honored," I finally said. "I won't let you down." The CEO nodded, and within a week, the promotion was official. My nameplate was moved to Qley's old office, and I was given full oversight of the strategy department. Qley, on the other hand, wasn't fired outright. HR let him save face by resigning, but his reputation was in tatters. From what I heard, he struggled to find another job in the same field. Word gets around in the corporate world, and no one wants to hire someone who steals credit for other people's work. After settling into my new role, I made a point to do things differently. I ensured that my team members received the recognition they deserved. I encouraged collaboration and transparency, fostering an environment where no one felt overshadowed or undervalued. It was a stark contrast to Qley's reign, and morale improved significantly. Looking back, confronting Qley wasn't just about revenge. It was about standing up for myself and setting a precedent. Too often, people like him get away with their entitlement and deceit because others are too afraid to call them out. I wanted to prove that hard work and integrity still matter, even in a cutthroat corporate environment. If there's one thing this experience taught me, it's that you have to advocate for yourself. No one else will do it for you. And sometimes, the best way to deal with a manipulative, entitled person is to let them dig their own grave while you quietly gather the tools to bury them. If you enjoyed this story, hit that subscribe button. I promise I'll always give credit where it's due.